Hi, I'm Diana Farnsworth, one of the librarians at Anacortes Public Library, and I have been asking so many community members to share something that they love, something that they are doing, so that we can see what our community is up to while we're all in our homes. And so it only seemed fair that since today is Shakespeare's birthday and I am a bit of a Shakespeare nerd. I don't know what the kindest way is to say it, but I do know that at last count, I think I've been given 3 of these mugs. When people see them, they think of me, and I love it. I appreciate it. I'll never be able to have too many because it has many of Shakespeare's wonderful creative insults, which are some of my favorite things about him. But today, I thought I would share 5 reasons why we are still celebrating this old dead guy's birthday. If you're not already somebody who loves Shakespeare, I hope I'll give you a couple ways to explore learning about him even from home. But since you may have only seen me, may never have seen me, or you might have seen me at the library reading children's stories, I thought I'd just tell you on my theme of 5 things you probably don't know about me that are related to Shakespeare. So the first is that I met many of my closest and dearest friends my freshman year in a production of Hamlet, where I met my now husband. It was more of a Beatrice Benedict sort of thing for the first few years with him and I, but I don't think we're Romeo and Juliet now, but we're working on the happily ever after part. So Shakespeare influenced my life quite a lot, possibly for the rest of it. I did go to school in England for a little bit, and I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art to get a Shakespeare certificate, and my teacher wanted to challenge me, and so instead of having me perform Ophelia, he made me perform Hamlet, and it was one of the more nerve-wracking things I've ever done. And I hope to never have to read or yell, "Get thee to a nunnery" to anyone ever again, but I passed, so it's okay, I checked that box. Number 3 is I counted. Not usually a numbers person, I'm more of a words person like Hamlet, which of course I'm here to tell you about, but I counted on my shelves 123 books about Shakespeare. Some of them are his plays, but that total does not include at least 2 complete sets of his works. So my husband said I had to stop. I thought I'd stop at 123 since the 23rd is Shakespeare's birthday and death day. It seemed appropriate, but I have a few. I have not read them all, but maybe hopefully we won't be stuck at home long enough for me to have to, but I do have quite a few good ones and I want to share a few with you today. Number 4, for weird facts about me and Shakespeare, the scariest thing I ever did in a job was before I was a librarian. I was working at a theater, and it was my first day on the job, and a group of unexpected students came in. They'd saved up all their money for their theater club. They'd gotten the date wrong, and they showed up at a theater thinking they were going to see a live Shakespeare performance. And the person who had hired me just walked away and said, "This is Diana, please. She'll tell you what to do." And I relied on all of my theater training and Shakespeare training and gave the kids a tour of the stage, and then we did some Shakespeare work up on the stage that we had to ourselves since there was no show. We did eventually figure out how to get them back to a show, so it was okay, but Shakespeare has been there for some of the best and scariest parts of my life. I think I'm not alone in that, but those are definitely pivotal moments in my life. And my last thing is that I told you I own 123 books, but I thought I would share with you some of the oddest ones. One of my favorites, this, I have to do a shout out to Tim at A-Town, because he let me have this book. I looked at it. I looked all over for this book after seeing it at A-Town, our wonderful restaurant here in Anacortes, and I could not find a copy. People write the weirdest things about Shakespeare, and so this book is called A Dictionary of Shakespearean Quotations, exhibiting the most forcible passages illustrative of the various passions, affections, and emotions of the human mind, arranged in alphabetic order, which, even though I'm a librarian, I don't arrange things in alphabetic order, by a random doctor who wanted to be an expert in Shakespeare. And he literally put every word he could find in Shakespeare plays in alphabetical order, and I thought I would just share with you. There are some really weird ones, but I thought I'd share what happens if you look up books. He chose something from Titus Andronicus. "Come and take choice of all my library, and so beguile thy sorrow." And then for book covers, "That book in many's eyes doth share the glory that in gold clasps, locks, in the Golden Story, which is from Romeo and Juliet. And it goes on and on. The entire alphabet, full of words. I'm sure I will never read the thing in its entirety, but sometimes when I want to look up a word and see what Shakespeare had to say about it or how he used it, I've got this random book and it brings me great joy. So thank you to Tim at A-Town for letting this librarian and total Shakespeare nerd have that book. The second is also something that I have that I got here in Anacortes when I started working at the library. One of my colleagues found out how much I loved Shakespeare and gave me this book. And it is an illustrated version of Macbeth, which I can say because I'm not in a theater, if anybody's worried. And it is illustrated by Salvador Dali. And it's just one of the most beautiful things that I've ever owned, and I'm so, so grateful to the librarian who gave it to me. Get all sorts of fun perks of being a librarian, but that's definitely one of my favorites, is when people come across weird books with Shakespeare, they think of me. Let's see what else I have. You're going to know weird things about me already, right? Bear with me, I've got more Shakespeare facts. I have this one, which is another alphabet book called Y is for Yorick. It is a slightly irreverent Shakespearean ABC book for grown-ups. The selection that I will share with you today is for R. R is for Romeo. Romeo is one of the greatest romantic lovers of all time. He's also a good example of why it is important to get along with your in-laws if you want your marriage to last. I found that to be true. I don't know if that's what Shakespeare intended, but I've got this handy little alphabet guide with tips about living if I ever need it, thanks to Shakespeare. Another very weird one I have, I think I got this at Watermark. It's called Pop Sonnets, and it has sonnet versions of pop songs. And I don't have permission to read a full one to you, but I thought I'd read you the first couple lines and see if you can figure out what song. I thought this song was appropriate for right now while we're all getting through this together. When at first we fell apart, I filled with fear that life without thy love could not be led. But through my long reflections upon my tears, I filled myself with courage in its stead. And that is a sonnet version of I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. So I have that if I ever need to read if I'm done with the regular sonnets and want to read pop sonnets. And then possibly my favorite book that I own, and it's so weird, is right here on my shelf. It is a teeny tiny Hamlet. So now you know quite a few weird Shakespeare things about me. So I will tell you the 5 reasons why I think Shakespeare still matters on Shakespeare's birthday today. The first is that he was irreverent. If you can't tell from some of these books that I have and things I say, I think that's a very common theme for Shakespeare lovers. He didn't follow the rules. He had things to say about politicians that we still use now. He was happy to talk about religion honestly. He often had a fool tell the truth about what was going on and speak truth to power. Like the real people, his characters were flawed. Hamlet could not make a decision and it ended poorly. Sorry, spoilers for some of you on some of these plays. If you don't know them, I may mention the ending. Number 2 is he did not follow the rules. He kind of created storytelling, and some of the books I'm going to share with you today that scholars have written about Shakespeare, he didn't use caricatures like everybody else had before. Shakespeare's plays were the first stories people could go to and watch and see characters change and grow like real people. So in my mind, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, because of Shakespeare we have character development and we have dynamic stories and we have these characters that we can relate to and see grow, and if you're an actor, that are just some of the best things to get to perform in the world. So I love it when people are rule breakers, of course, as long as they have good reasons. Let's see what else I have. He believed in true love. He was not afraid of tragedy, but he was also okay with having the romantic ending where the guy gets the girl, or maybe the girl dresses up as a guy. Again, a little bit of rule breaking, which is funny since men were always having to play the female parts in the beginning when Shakespeare was first being performed. But he's okay with going to the extremes. He's passionate. I think that's why creatives get so inspired by him. He he wrote epic love stories and great tragedies and everything in between, and you never know what's going to happen to the characters. And no matter how many times, I've never been in a live showing of Romeo and Juliet where at the end people aren't disappointed and are holding their breath hoping that Juliet and Romeo will somehow wake up before they end their lives. And there's always a gasp when it ends the way we know it's going to end. So what other storyteller can make you continue to see the most famous love story of all time and hope for a different ending? So I love his passion. My fourth reason is that he made up his own words. We think about 2,000, whether he made them up or was the first person to write them down on a piece of paper that we kept and actually still have a record of. We have Shakespeare to thank for about 2,000 words that are in our vocabulary, and they include assassination, which is such a better word than that important person got killed. They include, let's see, fashionable, which is very fun. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I put on a little bit of a Renaissance-inspired dress for you today because one of my favorite things that I'm missing is getting to dress up with you all at events for the library, and so I thought I would do it in my home. And swagger, which I hope all of us get to swagger from time to time in our lives, and without Shakespeare, we wouldn't have been able to swagger. So those are three of my favorites. I challenge you to look up a word that Shakespeare came up with and find one of your favorites. And then number 5, which I've kind of touched on, is that he brought people together. The way that we all are connecting right now and wishing that we had that human contact with only way people didn't have books when Shakespeare was writing, really. He wrote for the common people where they could all come together and see stories together. There weren't libraries full of books for people to read stories. They would have to come to one place and see these brand new stories and get to imagine what it was like to watch Hamlet for the first time. But in this weird time that we're living in, where you've got a librarian underneath the stairs in her house, in front of a personal library in a costume, trying to do a single take of a library program on her phone, which is attached to her vacuum cleaner in her living room. I think human connection is something that we are all looking for, and I think Shakespeare has always reminded many of us of human connection. I think a lot of us have stories about when we first heard a phrase or a play or went and saw one, and Shakespeare kind of made those wonderful live storytelling experiences a part of our culture. And you can read so many books, some of which I'll tell you about today, that will tell you all about that. But one thing that I will say whenever I teach Shakespeare is that it is not meant to be read quietly alone. So I'm not going to be recommending that you read a play alone. I'm going to be telling you about places you can watch plays. I'm going to be telling you about books you can read to find out a little bit more, or to laugh and enjoy Shakespeare maybe in a different way than you might have done so in school. But I hope that you get to read some Shakespeare out loud with friends or go see a show. But in the meantime, while we're at home, here are 5 ways that you can enjoy Shakespeare from home right now. The first one is my favorite. It is listen to Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart, the great actor who might be most famous here in America for his role as Jean-Luc Picard, which I do believe is the best Star Trek captain ever, but that's for a different program. He has decided during this quarantine that he will be reading a sonnet a day, and you can go to his Twitter or Facebook page and you can listen to Sir Patrick Stewart read a sonnet every day, except for I think one where he said, "This one's too hard and I'm gonna skip it," which I appreciate. Shakespeare allows for those sorts of, there are some really weird ones there in the beginning, but if you wanna get a dose of a sonnet, I'm not going to perform any Shakespeare for you today because I'm gonna tell you about all of these wonderful experts who can do so. So my first recommendation, if you need a little dose of Shakespeare, is to find a sonnet read by Patrick Stewart and listen to it. Number 2 is you can watch a live show on YouTube. The National Theatre is celebrating Shakespeare, so starting today for a week, you can watch Twelfth Night on YouTube from the National Theatre, which does fantastic productions in London, and they're very difficult or expensive to see, and you can watch it on YouTube this week in celebration of Shakespeare. But if you have your library card, there are so many ways that you can enjoy Shakespeare. So bear with me, I've got all of my different things here that I want to tell you about. Librarian starts to talk about books, I get real excited. I want to tell you that you can check out quite a few books on Libby or Overdrive and Hoopla. Some of my favorite things that I discovered, just a second, were you can read or listen to William Shakespeare's Star Wars by Ian Dozier, which is very fun, all in verse, in iambic pentameter like Shakespeare wrote, but the Star Wars. This is really fun with your family to read out loud if you want, but these are available online, I think on Overdrive. If you don't want to read classic Shakespeare, but you want to read something inspired by, for the 450th anniversary of Shakespeare, a bunch of authors got together and wrote some books. So Ann Tyler, the Pulitzer Prize winning author, wrote Vinegar Girl, which is inspired by The Taming of the Shrew, and that's available on Libby as well. And then if you want to go to a little more scholarly and read one of those very famous scholars, and he does write fantastic books, James Shapiro wrote Contested Will, Who Wrote Shakespeare, and that's also available on the digital library. So those are 3 things, and there are many more. You can find all the plays to, as I said, I recommend reading or listening or watching them or reading them out loud, not just reading a play in one sitting. That's not how it's meant to be enjoyed, but you can find them all on our digital library. So just use your library card and call us up or leave us a message if you're not sure how to access those. That's all we want to do for you while we're all at home. And then on Hoopla, which you also have access to right now during this closure, you have access to twice as many titles as usual, and then even some extra free ones that they've made available, knowing that we're all at home and wanting us to be safe. You can stream movies. You can stream the classic Much Ado About Nothing with the fabulous Emma Thompson. Denzel Washington's in it. Kenneth Branagh directed it. Emma Thompson's really the reason to watch it, but it's a fantastic version of Much Ado About Nothing. You can stream that on Hoopla, but you can only have them for 3 days, so be sure you're going to watch it when you download it. And then I was really excited to find on Hoopla, this is for those of you who want to get really deep into Shakespeare, you might have figured out that my favorite play is Hamlet. And Hamlet, globe to globe, 2 years, 190,000 miles, 197 countries, one play, is a very fun exploration of very many different productions of Hamlet, and you can read it. It's immediately available on Hoopla if you want to read it. So those are just a few of the ways that you can enjoy Shakespeare with our digital services from the library. I'm going to show you a few other books that you can check out, again, when the library is open, or order from our fabulous Watermark books. I did call them today, and one of the books that they have right now that you could order for pickup from them is the William Shakespeare's Star Wars. They have some of those versions, so if you need a laugh and want to read some iambic pentameter George Lucas, call Watermark up. They can help you out. All right, what else do I have? This is so the last thing I want to tell you is that you can tune into the Folger Library. That's my good, helpful librarian tip for you, is the Folger Library is celebrating all sorts of Shakespeare events. You can listen to lectures, you can watch shows, there's links to all kinds of things. And I'm gonna put all of the links to the various book lists I could not mention, and you wouldn't want to listen to me mention all of the great Shakespeare resources that are available on Libby and Hoopla, but I am going to make sure that those lists and links are available on our website, and I'll put some of those in the comments for this program as well. But the last thing that I want to share with you is that you can, the last fun way, I think, that you could celebrate Shakespeare, I have so many books, just give me 1 second, is you can make a cocktail, which I kind of wanted to do before I did this, but I was nervous enough doing this all live in one take and feeling for all the people I've asked to make wonderful videos. Shout out to Summer for doing our first one. You can make a cocktail, and I tried to look, and I'm sure some of you have experienced this. You can't go out and shop immediately, so you got to make things with what you have. But I found Prospero's Dark and Stormy that I'm going to try to make today, and I thought I'd share the recipe with you because it was one of the simplest. If you happen to have fresh ginger, you just need 2 thin discs, 2 ounces of dark rum, 5 ounces of ginger beer, and a lime wedge. And you just place those ginger discs in a highball and muddle to create that ominous cloudy effect that's so Shakespearean. Fill the glass with ice, Pour in the rum and ginger beer and stir, and then garnish with the lime wedge. And then it says, feel the power. So if you want to try Prospero's Dark and Stormy and toast me tonight, I'm going to give that a try. But since I have to do this in one edit, I won't make you watch me try to blunder through my kitchen figuring that out. Lastly, thank you for watching this. Thank you for supporting the library and participating in all of our events online. We are really enjoying reaching out to you in this new way, and we're going to keep bringing you all sorts of different content. I mean, if I talk to you about Shakespeare this week and you get to hear about an artist next week, and we're going to have a NASA program and some speakers that way, we're going to keep learning even from our homes, and we don't just have to read, we can share with each other. So I really appreciate that, and I wanted to do a small shout out to our ACT Theater. They are doing quarantine theater, and you can watch local people you've seen on stage or not perform theater. I think they've done more than one a day since this started on their Facebook page as well. I don't know, I may try to do a Shakespeare one tomorrow, I'm not sure. But thank you. The world is a stage, and I'm just a mere player in it, as you know, as we all are. And I wanted to thank you for letting me share today. And since I'm not going to read you any Shakespeare, I'm going to leave that to greater professional actors. I thought I would stick with what I know as a librarian, and I would read a story. And spoilers on this one, guys. You're going to find out. This is for those of you who know Hamlet and love it. So if you don't, turn away. Make that cocktail. This book is called Look, Hamlet. And it is published by a nonprofit publisher, Restless Books, but distributed by Simon & Schuster. So thank you to them for giving us permission for all the story times we've been doing. And yes, this is an adult program, but of course I'm going to read you a picture book. So without further ado, Look, Hamlet by Barbara Lindgren and Anna Hoagland, and is translated from the Swedish by Rachel Wilson Broyles. And a dear friend gave this to me. I've never seen it anywhere else, and I'm going to share it with you today. Look, Hamlet. Hamlet not happy. You might need that drink before I finish reading this, huh? Hamlet's mommy dumb. Hamlet's daddy dead. Hamlet gets other daddy. Other daddy super dumb. Now don't tell people what happened. Some people don't know. Hamlet's daddy ghost now. Ghost can talk. Your sketchy new daddy killed me. Hamlet hearts Ophelia. Ophelia hearts Hamlet. Ophelia's daddy sketchy. Hamlet crazy now. Hamlet swords Ophelia's daddy. Oops, sorry. Thought it was a rat. Ophelia crazy too. Ophelia falls in river. Now Ophelia dead. Hamlet super sad. See, there's the skull. Soliloquy time. Sketchy daddy wants to kill Hamlet. Ophelia's brother swords Hamlet. Hamlet swords Ophelia's brother. Uh-oh, there's some glugging going on in the back. I'm going too fast, I apologize. Hamlet's mommy drinks danger juice. Now Hamlet's mommy dead. Hamlet swords sketchy daddy. Now sketchy daddy dead. Ophelia's brother dead. Hamlet dead. Now everyone dead. Nighty night. And of course, flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. Yes, I did just read the world's most simplified version of Hamlet to you in a picture book, if you're wondering what you just watched. So, if you now need to celebrate Shakespeare in a more adult fashion, I want to let you know that I'm going to go and attempt that drink. If you're like me, I was able to find one of the ingredients in my house. I do have dark rum that I stole from my husband's stash. I don't have regular ginger beer. I have spiced ginger beer, so that's going to be interesting. I do not have a lime. I have a lemon, so I'll put a lemon wedge on top. That's similar, right? And I think I'm gonna refrain from putting ginger powder on top, but I'm gonna make it in this mug for good luck. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you learned something about Shakespeare and get to read some fabulous books during this time, and happy birthday to William Shakespeare. Thank you for inspiring so many of us in so many wonderful and ridiculous ways.